Welcome to BRAMstrology, where you are now taking steps to becoming your rare, authentically mastered self using the language of the stars. My name is Brandon, and today we are going to be talking about both Mars in Aries and Mars in the first house. So in the description box below, you're going to see some resources down there that I think will be of great use to you. A bunch of different videos that I referenced throughout the course of this video, as well as some playlists, things like that down there. Also down there is going to be the timestamps for when I talk about the Mars in Aries and the Mars in the first house portion. So if you have either of those placements, feel free to click down below, check those out. If you're interested in hearing more about Mars and how Mars energy can manifest, stay here right now. If not, just go down there, click what you got. You know how YouTube works. You're not dumb. So with that being said, a couple things I want to say before I get started with everything. Firstly, if you're new to my channel, hi, hello, my name's Brandon. If you didn't realize that in my intro, and I do astrology things. If you also didn't realize that in my intro, I'm sorry, but anywho, point is, these videos that I do are my passion. I love talking about this stuff, and this is a part of a very long series that I will be doing of all the planets through all the signs and all the houses, so it's going to take a little bit of time to do, but I'm very excited to do this. And in the description box below, I'm going to put all the playlists as well of all of the Aries signs, the Mars signs, all those things, so you can check that out down there too as they kind of progress. And then, of course, my social things are down there too if you want to connect with that. But if you are new to astrology, first of all, hi. Welcome to this crazy world of self-discovery. It's great. And two, if you don't know what your birth chart is, that's very important to understand. So look in the description box below for resources on how to figure that out. If you don't know your birth time and need some resources on that, I also linked another link down below to help you figure out your birth time and rectify that and figure out where these planetary bodies fall within your chart. So check that down there below. And I just keep pointing down, like it's just a lot of this, But point being, that is just a little bit of intro there for you all. Now we're just going to talk about just the basics of just Martian energy and kind of how Mars shows up in your chart. So see you next part. So Mars energy and the basic significators of that. If you don't know what the glyph looks like for Mars, it looks like this. Pretty common. I'm sure you've probably seen it before. And if you put in and generate your birth chart using some of the resources down below, it'll tell you what sign Mars was in when you were born. And depending on if you have your birth time or not, it will let you know what house Mars is in. So it's important to understand that first. So if you don't know how to generate your birth chart, look down below to those resources there. And if you don't have your birth time or need some resources to figure that out, there's resources down there below as well. Now, Martian energy is considered a naturally malefic energy. It's an energy that has a cosmic sort of force with it, where it really pushes you in a certain way towards whatever sign and house Mars is in. And so Mars energy is very much related to the archetype of masculine in the traditional sense, and in the sense of going towards what you want, going and moving in the direction of your desires. It has to do with the aspect of desire because it actually rules Aries. So it has to do with that, the energy of going towards what you want and persevering and continuing through that sort of path and carving your path. And a lot of Aries energy has to do with being an individual, being connected to your own identity. And Mars, if you don't know what your identity is, it's difficult for Mars to kind of function. If you don't know what you want in life, Mars isn't going to really know how to direct itself. And if you know what your Mars sign is, if it does happen to be in Aries, then it is very beneficial. And we will talk about that when we talk about the Mars and Aries portion. But the thing is, with Aries, with Mars energy in general, it does have a force behind it. And it shows how you bring your energy forward and move things and go after things and build things or break things down depending on what's going on. Mars is naturally a malefic planet, and because of this there is going to be potentially some difficulties in whatever house that Mars may be in. And we'll talk about that as we progress through this series here. But Mars does have a way of kind of having you fight harder for that area of life, or having you kind of put more energy or purpose or force into the development and fighting for those specific things. And depending on what else is going on in your chart, of course, Mars may play a bigger role. So it may have more of a importance for you to develop those things, whereas other things might not be as important. Now, Mars energy as well does typically show a more argumentative sort of area of life as well. Like I said, I'll talk about this when I get into the house series with Mars. But this energy does also show how you get up in the morning, how you get up in the morning, what you fight for, what you go towards in your life. And having a very healthy Mars is very, very important. It also rules your libido. It rules your sexual desires in that way as well, because it is also ruled by that scorpionic energy. So it has this very instinctual nature to it. And it has to do with the development of your instincts and the development of moving towards the direction of your instincts and not allowing your instincts to harm or create more harm, right? And it has to do with the concept of movement as well, and what you want to move towards depending on where your Mars sign is located. So yeah, that's a little intro to the Mars there. I'm gonna go now start on the actual Mars and Aries portion. This will be much more organized as I have the notes next to me to kind of reference. So I will see you in the next portion, which is Mars in Aries. Okay, so Mars in Aries. So Mars in Aries, there's a lot of energy to talk about with this because Mars rules Aries. So a lot of the significators of Martian energy is already going to kind of be put in the archetype of Aries in a sense. Now, Mars in the sign of Aries has a very focused way about it, because Aries has to do with specifically yourself, right? Yourself, your desires, what you want, your life direction, the forming of that, and the impulse, right? Aries in the first house both kind of rule the idea of impulse and following that. And when you have Mars, the planet of impulse, planet of action, in the sign of Aries, which is what it rules, and it loves to be in this way, it will go after what it wants. It will follow those impulses. It'll learn how to use its energy in the most efficient way through knowing themselves, knowing what they want, knowing what they desire. It's not the same as if it were to be in like Scorpio, where it's knowing kind of on a different sort of level. This is very much, I know I can do this. I know I've done this before. I know I want this. I'm going to go after this, right? That's a lot of what Mars and Aries energy is about. And the thing about having your Mars and Aries too, because it is such a on the nose sort of placement, it is also important to look to see what your Venus is doing, because these energies always work kind of together. So if your Mars is in Aries but your Venus is in a different sign that's kind of difficultly aspected, it might make it harder for you to understand what you really care about but know how to go after things, or vice versa. But more than likely not, because you have Mars in Aries, so you're not really that much of an issue. But the point is, look to your Venus sign as well, to get you some better ideas of this sort of the yin and yang energy that you're working with within your chart, essentially. So a couple notes I have on Mars and Aries. First thing, of course, self-assertion is important. So having your Mars and Aries, the ability to just stand up for yourself is very, very crucial. You have to understand that who you are and asserting your own needs and your own boundaries are very, very important. Because if you don't understand what that is, it's more difficult for you to go after what you want as a Mars and Aries. Because Mars and Aries will make you very capable of getting things that you want. It's just a matter of asserting yourself towards those things. Now, with this being Mars's home placement, English is weird. This is very comfortable for Mars. It knows how to function. It knows how to work. It knows how to go after what it wants in a very instinctual way. It knows how to take care of its own needs and how to meet its own needs through action. If you really want to have something done efficiently, look towards a Mars and Aries. But the thing about this one, though, is the Mars and Aries person has to find the value in themselves doing it, not just for monetary things or things of that nature. They have to really resonate with what they're doing. With this, there is a potential for sort of a bulldozing energy if it's not handled correctly, because Mars in Aries is so fiery, and Aries is a cardinal fire sign, so it starts things. And so this may be a little bit difficult to handle if it's not directed in the right way. If it doesn't know what fire to start or what direction to start, it might just start a bunch of stuff, or it might bulldoze in an attempt to really get what it wants and getting everything else out of the way. Because Mars and Aries is so strong, it can just like absolutely just laser in and just go after it. So that typically happens more so with Saturn aspects to Mars, but that's a whole different story. The thing about Mars and Aries too, definitely know when to initiate versus hold back. I definitely spoke about that just now, because that is definitely something that Mars and Aries can initiate very easily and know how to initiate. But it's important to understand the other side of it, the more receptive side, which is why it's important to see your Venus as well with this combination, because you may have a Mars and Aries that is very, forward moving and very, very, very strong, but you may have, like a Venus in Capricorn, right? Or a Venus in even Cancer, honestly, that are all going to be these energies that are going to want to receive a little bit more, want to take things a little bit slower, and the Mars and Aries might not want to do that. And there might be this impulse and hold back energy, this kind of push and pull between your Venus and Mars. So definitely look towards your Venus with that to kind of understand those things. Physical activity is very, very, very important for these individuals. Most Aries placements need some sort of physical activity to feel like they're doing something and feel like they're engaging themselves and they're letting that energy sort of flow. Because when Mars is transiting the sign of Aries, most people will go out and work more and go out and do more things with their life and go out and be more physically active. And Mars in Aries is also common for athletes because it is a very physical sign, physically demanding sign. So there is a lot of energy with that as well. There's other indicators for athletic physique and things like that, but this is a very naturally physical placement. The other thing too, it's as I just said, a common placement for athletic physique and a natural high vitality, so a natural energy of life and kind of youth in a sense, because Aries is a very youthful energy. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It has a lot of youth involved with it. So having your Mars sign there is you might have this very young sort of approach to things, or kind of, it may start off as naive, but it may be something that if you can really, really work with it, you'll be able to like kind of preserve your youth in a sense, and preserve that sort of high vitality that you have in your youth, because you're so tapped into that sort of your own identity, your own instinct in that way. With this too, because it is such a strong placement for Mars, Mars will protect whatever house it is located in. So, for example, if you have your Mars in Aries, and it's in the 7th house, for example, you are going to be very, very protective of your relationships, the people you sign contracts with, the marriage partner, the people one-on-one that you interact with. Mars in its own sign is going to protect the house that is associated with that sign. So anything that kind of comes in to kind of fight that area or go against that area, Mars will for the most part sustain that. It does obviously have to look at the entirety of the chart. It's a little bit more of an intermediate sort of technique and interpretation, but it is important to know that this Mars being in the sign of Aries is more likely to protect and fight in that area of life that Mars is specifically located. This isn't going to be the same with Mars in the first house unless Mars is also in Aries. So it's mainly because Mars is in its home sign, so whatever house it's in, it's already kind of fortifying that house is essentially what it would be called. Of course, also look to see what house Scorpio rules, to see what else is going on and what is also going to be protected, because those are both naturally Martian ruled houses. So they are going to be more activated naturally because you have your Mars in Aries. So look to see what house Scorpio's in, to see what other area is going to be impacted by the Martian energy. The thing about Mars in Aries too, it has a way of self-assertion that's different from the self-containment energy in Scorpio. So that's why I think there is a very distinct difference between Aries and Scorpio representation of Mars, where there's a need to kind of sit and observe the feelings as a Mars and Scorpio would, versus going after it in a very impulsive, fiery, passionate way, or action-based way as a Mars and Aries would. So it's important to understand the different representations of Mars. And this Mars and Aries energy is more prone, obviously, to the starting and the quick movement and starting things, because it's a cardinal sign. Versus Scorpio, it is a fixed sign. It's more of a slow-moving sign. It sustains what it chooses, so it takes those choices a little bit more seriously. Mars and Aries, not saying it doesn't take those choices seriously, but it does have a way of just starting things and understanding that's how it gets things done, and it accomplishes its goals, is by starting things. And if it doesn't work, okay, drop it and go this way, or whatever it may be. So it is important to understand how that difference and how you utilize your energy as a Mars and Aries versus other Mars signs. But it is at home, so of course Mars and Aries is going to work very, very well, and it's going to allow you to really utilize and motivate yourself just naturally. Honestly, it's a really, really strong placement. The thing about Mars and Aries too, I said this earlier, is it knows what it wants, and you know how to get it and pursue it. It's not anything that really comes difficult to you. The only reason this may be difficult, as I said before, is because of the Venus placement that may be afflicted, which Venus shows your values and what you care about. And if you don't know what you care about, you don't really know how to go after it. If you don't really know what you really value, it's difficult to find a sense of purpose, or find a sense of direction, or a sense of initiation on things if you don't know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. So that's important to understand too. Mars and Aries will typically be seen as a higher sex drive than most people, because of that natural placement of the libido being in the self, the self, the sort of individual, just the body. It's going to kind of be felt and seen in the body in a way. Another thing with this Mars and Aries, it is a little bit more masculine in nature, because Mars is already a masculine planet. Aries is a masculine sign, so it's just very forward moving. So it's very important to understand those masculine sort of archetypes that are associated with Aries and Mars are both being kind of brought together. Typically, the relationships with male figures are beneficial to you, unless, of course, Mars is afflicted and there's difficult aspects to it. But for the most part, relationships with male figures and male energy will typically be pretty beneficial, and there will be kind of a healthy competition or a healthy relationship with those people. It may depend on some other things, but most of these relationships too do have a competitive nature to them, because Mars and Aries does need a sense of competition, or really thrive in a sense of competition, because Aries is the number one. It's the leader. It's the one that starts new things and pioneers new directions, and it likes to have competition. It likes to have people that it can kind of race with, or that it can kind of not really go against, because I don't like that word choice, but it's very much about directing and saying, I'm going to get there, this is my goal, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to get it. That's it. Nothing's going to get in my way. But if there's people that are coming at them and saying, I want that goal too, it almost motivates that Mars and Aries even further to go after that. And that's the thing that if you know someone has a Mars and Aries, don't get competitive with them, because they are going to take you down. Unless you have an amazingly placed Mars or whatever it may be. The Mars and Aries, for the most part, is, once they know what their goal is, they're going after it. That's it. Point blank period. Nothing will get in their way. They're going after it. But if they have competition, it actually fuels them more, because Mars is opposing the sign of Libra, which is other people. And so it has to do with seeing other people that are going after the same goals and might be threatening to your own sense of individuality. And there is a sense too with this Mars in Aries. It's more so in the first house that this would manifest. But it's almost like the people that come towards you may threaten your identity in the sense of the competition that I said. So if someone, is fighting for that new promotion, both of you can't have it. You know what I mean? There's only going to be one person that's going to get it. So there is a sense of, and this, like I said, this is more prominent with the Mars in the first house, where people will want the same things as you and have the same desires as you, and their desire for that same desire as yours may threaten your identity. And make you honestly fight harder and fight faster to reach that goal, which I think is healthy in a sense, but it is also something that needs to be understood. That the desires of yourself and also the desires you see in others may threaten that identity and then make you perpetuate or pursue those goals more drastically, or more focused. So there is energies around that too. Like I said, that manifests more so in Mars in the first house versus Mars in Aries, but it is worth noting because I have seen it happen sometimes with Mars in Aries as well. The thing that I already said is it is with Mars and Aries, you typically know how to best start things and what direction to go in, because it is a planetary energy that starts things, right? Both Mars and Aries start things. They're cardinal fire. They know how to start things and what to do, and they're able to assess the situation and know what steps to go in. The thing about Mars and Aries, there may not be some staying power, so there may need to be more fixed energy within the chart, or energy that shows things of more lasting potential or lasting commitment, because Mars and Aries, if negatively afflicted, could manifest as a very impulsive person. Because that's the thing about Mars and Aries, is you're really supposed to understand your impulses in this life and understand the value of impulse and the value of following that sort of feeling of I want to go this way or this way, and just following that sort of pathway and seeing how that identity kind of forms through that sort of impulsive movement. So it is important to understand that too, because the Mars in Aries does have to understand it's not entirely impulse control unless Mars is aspecting Saturn or things of that nature, but knowing how to assert yourself in a direction that is in alignment with your own identity and with what you know you want. And sometimes that happens through just trial and error, which is pretty typical for Mars in any cardinal sign. Just going and trying, I don't like this, okay, I'm going to start this thing. I don't like this, I'm going to start this thing. So there is energy around these archetypes, both Mars and Aries, that have to do with that sort of explorative process to figure out who you are. And that's the thing that's really beautiful about Aries energy, is it really has to do with the identity and the formation of that identity through trial and error, and through getting up and persevering and saying, no, I want this. This is what I want. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to be, and go after it. If Mars and Aries know who they want to be and they know what they want to be, they're golden. They're fine. If they don't, it might be difficult because they're trying to figure out who that is, who they are, what they want. And if they don't have that clear-cut image, they might start things and not really understand it. But that's part of the beauty of life, is you try different things and see what sticks. You try different things as a Mars and Aries and see what you really enjoy, and then follow that path. Start something and then follow it and sustain it. And that's when you'll really see a lot of power within your Mars placement that is going to be beautiful for this placement. I love it. I love you, Mars and Aries. You guys are great. I think there's so much strength in your placement. Clearly, that's probably one of the strongest Mars placements that you could have. So that was Mars and Aries. I'm going to move on to talk about Mars in the first house. So I'll see you next part. Okay, so we got Mars in the first house. This energy is a little bit interesting to me. So as I was talking about in the previous portion, Mars in Aries and Mars in the first house have some significators that are similar, but they do not have all the same. Because Mars can be in the first house, but not be in Aries. And Mars in the first house has very different ways of working, because the first house most prominently shows your birth, like your actual birth, being born, as well as your impulses, what you use for your impulses, and your identity, how you approach the world. So for the most part, Mars in the first house, no matter what sign it's going to be in, is still going to follow those things I spoke about with the Mars and Aries portion of impulse and understanding through that impulsive sort of direction. Through, okay, I want to do this, I'm going to go in this direction, I'm going to try this thing, it doesn't work, okay, I'm going to go this, right? So there's all those different energies around Mars in the first house. That is still the same as it was with Mars and Aries. Because that's kind of the evolutionary perspective in that way, and kind of where the journey is pushing you with having your Mars and Aries. or Mars in Aries, Mars in the first house. Now, depending on what sign Mars is in, it's like, let's say if you have Mars in the first house, but you have Mars in Aquarius, this is going to be a very interesting and almost completely wacky and out of the box way of approaching things. And there may be some very interesting social dynamics with this as well, because when it comes to the first house, you're using the planetary energy in your first house to decide how to interact with your environment. The first house planetary energies all will show that. So if you have your Mars in Aquarius in the first house, like I said, you're going to interact, you're going to use Martian energy to kind of figure out how to go about life and how to interact with your environment. But because it's Aquarius, it's going to be this very detached, very sporadic way of approaching things sometimes. And it also has a way of maybe having some issue with friends or some weird quirkiness that people can't quite grasp, but you understand, but you're trying to figure out the quirkiness. That's kind of a lot of what it is. It's kind of like with this specific placement with Mars and Aquarius in the first house, it's trying to be unique and understand your unique complexity even more so through kind of an unconventional approach to the way you move. So you might do something completely random and out of the box. Like this is very much someone that would have an impulse to go and travel and go and do something completely entirely different and change their life direction. And Mars and Aquarius would do that. But the point of this Mars in the first house placement, just overall, is you are going to use your Martian energy, use what you go after to understand more of your identity and understand more of your life path. And physical vitality is very important to Mars in the first house people, because if you have high energy and you have energy to use, that is how much you're going to get done. That's how you're going to be able to realize how much you can actually do in a day through being in touch with your physical vitality in your energy field, in the way that you actually feel and what you feel like you can do in that day, what you feel like you can accomplish, right? So it's very important to know that as well, because the Martian energy is what you kind of utilize to navigate your day, essentially. Anything in the first house is used as a tool of navigation. So it's important to understand that. With this, active lifestyle is crucial for the development, because you need to stay active and stay moving with the Mars in the first house. No matter really what sign it's in, you have to have some sort of really strong sort of movement, consistent throughout the course of your life to feel like you're accomplishing things. With Mars in the first house, the understanding of your motives and understand how to trust your impulses is important. Similar to what I said with Mars in Aries, that is also a developmental thing. Understand your impulses, understand how to work with them is crucial with this placement. And more so if Mars is afflicted or if there's some difficult things going on with this, because it has a way of really pulling you to figure out who you are. Really, that's what Mars wants to do. Mars wants to pull you to figure out who you are, but through the process of your own actions. Less so like if it were Venus, it would be people coming to you to, kind of tell you who you are. Mars in the first house is I'm going out to show the world who I am and build who I am through an act of actual just impulse and following that and going after what you want. So it's you going after what you want and creating your identity through your own impulses and your own sort of movement and choices, essentially. Depending upon sect, Mars may function more destructively versus constructively. With having a day chart, which means your sun is above the horizon, so between the 7th and 12th house, you are going to be Mars may come across as a more destructive sort of energy, and destructive isn't bad. It just means that it will function more as a malefic in like the most like specific sense, versus a more constructive quality in the other malefic that you have. Now, if you were born and you had your sun below the horizon, so you are a night chart and you have it between the 1st and 6th house, there is going to be more of a constructive energy. This might increase your energy with this Mars in the 1st house, where it has a lot of oomph to it and a lot of energy that it's able to really bring out those reserves really, really well with Mars in the 1st house here with a night chart, because with the night chart, the malefic for Mars is the malefic for a night chart is Saturn and not Mars. So Mars is actually going to be more beneficial in this way. So it is important to understand sect. That's a whole different thing in astrology. So feel free to check that out. But it's a whole different approach to things as well. It's more so in the Hellenistic approach. So I would definitely recommend looking that up if you are interested in that and understanding sect, because it is important to understand, kind of add more layers and nuance to your own chart. With this, Mars in the first house, male relationships may become ways for you to see your own potential that I've seen. So because Mars rules males and male figures, having it in the first house you may see other male figures doing things you want to do, and may be able to see your own potential through those other people, through the people that you're watching that are living up to goals or doing things or accomplishing things. You can see what you could accomplish through other people with that Mars in the first house. So that is a very important thing that I've seen quite often, actually, with Mars in the first house, where they're able to see that males can like do what they want to do, and that kind of ups their own competitiveness, but it also ups their own sort of identity thing, which is what I talked about in the previous portion, where there's almost a fighting for your identity that may be kind of threatened through male relationships, or through other people that may kind of threaten your own direction. And like I said in the previous portion, there's a way of this where there can only be one CEO. There can only be one person that gets a promotion in a corporate setting, right? And so when you have two people competing for the same role, it goes against your identity, because you both are identified as, I deserve this position, or I am the CEO, or I am getting this raise, or whatever it may be, because of X, Y, and Z. This is who I am, right? So when someone else is competitive with you, or someone else has the same identity as you, or similar things they desire as you, it may cause this sort of like friction within your body where like, no, I identify with that stronger than they do. And that is what's really important about Mars in the first house, is because you are here to understand your identity through those conflicts or those sorts of things that cause friction or cause tension in your body or tension in your way, and say, no, this is who I am. And that's what's so beautiful about a first house energy, is it really allows you to understand who you are through the development of that planet, which is so beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. May be aggressive by nature if Mars is afflicted. Obviously, that's a pretty common thing, or common interpretation, rather, of this energy, because Mars is aggression. If it's in the first house, you may use your aggression as a means of movement or deciding what to do, or you may use your anger to decide what you do. What makes you feel mad, what makes you feel rage, may pull you in the direction of what you need to do, or push you rather into the direction of what you need to do. And you may use that passion, or that rage, or that displaced anger or energy to motivate you in the direction of what you want, which in a sense is still developing your identity in its own way anyway, but it may be harmful if Mars is afflicted, and Mars is, squared by Uranus or Pluto, or different sort of energies that are kind of like exacerbating the impulsivity of it, or the sort of anger or negative representations of it, or negative sort of manifestations of it, essentially. I already talked about this before, but the evolutionary purpose of your soul is to understand the ability to act on impulses as a way of developing identity. So I already spoke about that pretty in depth here, because it is a pretty common approach in evolutionary astrology, is just understanding the purpose of your soul in that way, is to really develop those impulses and understand who you are through that process. The classic fall off the bike and get back on energy, that is very much that with Mars in the first house. Perseverance energy is important for your own development, so that's very important as well, to keep persevering and going after what you want, and keeping the direction you want to go in, and just keep going and don't quit, because that's very important too with the Mars in the first house. Discernment of when to act and go after things that you desire. This is important too, because if you don't know what you desire and what you want to go after, you're not going to put in the energy. You're not going to go after it. You're not going to put in the time. You're not going to put in the focus. And it's a matter of staying focused and staying diligent on what you want with the Mars in the first house. You want to be in touch with your desires and allow that to guide you in making your own choices. So that's important as well. You may be seen as more masculine despite other placements in your chart. So you may have a very feminine Venusian sort of chart layout, but you may have this Mars in the first house that may make you be perceived more as this masculine energy, or this more macho, or sort of like fit energy, like more of like someone that they would call to go and do work for them, or go and build something for them, or go and do manual labor. There's a lot of that too with Mars in the first house. The life direction becomes driven by your own desires, which is very important. It's important to understand your desires with this placement. Anything with the Mars in the first house, any first house planet is going to show your desires of that energy, but Mars especially, because it is associated with the first house. And your identity comes through the desires, and your direction comes through understanding your desires that may, like I said, be pushed back by other people desiring the same thing or identifying with the same thing as you. So that's why there's that competition aspect with the Mars in both Aries and the first house. So this is interesting. I said self-made energy. And I think I put the quotes mainly because there is an aspect of all the self-made people that aren't just self-made. I mean, it is a thing where you do have to do it yourself, but there is still some support that you have or have had that have gotten you to that self-propelling energy. So it's important to understand that. But this is a very self-made energy with Mars in the first house, where you literally make yourself. You determine your own success with Mars in the first house 100%. Like it is determined by you, and your life direction, your identity is determined by you and the direction you want to go in. And it's really, really beautiful. Your life path may be filled with arguments or physical altercations with yourself and or others. Because Mars is in the first house, there is this aspect it's making to the 7th house of other people. So there may be some altercations and arguments that may just come to you, because people will naturally kind of associate you with Martian energy in general, depending on what else is going on with your chart, but for the most part, they are going to. They're going to see you as combative or motivating even. It can be either of those things. It can manifest in many different ways, but people will see you as a force, as a sort of movement or a motivating factor in their life, or some sort of energy. That's why it comes off as very authoritative or assertive. And it's important to understand that with that, Mars energy being so close to your identity and how you navigate, people are going to pick up on that, and there may be some altercations, there may be some arguments, maybe some disagreements, some confrontations that you're going to have to deal with, but those are going to help you further identify who you are and what you want to do and where you want to go. So it's important to know that those arguments are helping you determine that and determine the life direction, and more solidly understand who you are in that process. It's really beautiful, honestly, even despite the arguments and all those things being traditionally negative things. The thing about this too, there's potential for fights or physical harm to body that causes you to see your potential of your life choices. So with this, this is a little bit on the more, I guess, negative side. Well, I guess it could go either way. So it can be someone that goes and has a fight with someone, a physical fight, that allows them to see their own strength in their body and see how much vitality they have and life they have, right? That they're so grateful for the fact that they worked out for the past 10 years and they got in this fight in an alleyway, and now they know that they have that strength and they're grateful for that. So it actually fortifies that identity through them having that sort of fight. On the reverse, if they got into a fight and got seriously hurt because they hadn't been working out or hadn't been doing those things, this is a very basic example, they will then value that more, right? And they're like, okay, I have to work for this. I have to make sure that I take care of this more, or that I understand my life choices from this point on. And this is very important to Mars in the first house, to understand your life choices. because it's all about the choices you make with this placement. And these fights and any physical harm to the body will definitely pull you in different directions to make different choices. If they don't, it's a little concerning, but for the most part, the choices you make as a Mars in the first house person are going to change. It's important for you to understand that you make the choice in your life. Overall, every single person has free will. It's not something that is taken away if Mars goes into a different house. But Mars in the first house, a lot of that is really in your hands with that way. There is cosmic energy that correlates, that has a sort of effect on us. It's not necessarily a super like causal, like because you have Mars in the first house, you are going to get into a fight. It's not exactly verbatim that, but it is important to understand that you have free will and the choices you make are yours and yours alone. And Mars in the first house people will need to develop that and develop the trust in their own intuition, their own gut, their own impulse, their own instinct. So it is important to understand that, and that is something that may come through physical altercations or through bodily harm that will really allow you to see that you really care about yourself, or you need to start taking care of yourself, or go in a different direction. So there's a lot of those things with this energy. It's interesting. 2 more points. The surgery on the body may be a point of focus in your life, because Mars rules surgery, and the first house is the body. So having your Mars in the first house may have an indicator of your life being, at some point, some surgery may be pivotal in your life direction, in your identity, in your identification of, oh, I got this surgery, so therefore this is who I am, which it's not a bad thing because everyone gets surgery for different reasons. But it is important to understand that a surgery is very much an identification of who you are. It's literally a scar. Like, for example, I have a scar on my abdomen. I've had a surgery when I was born. Mars was actually in my first house when this was going on, which is crazy. But it is something that is, the scars literally are something that are identified with you. It's your body remembering the pain that you went through in that way. But a surgery with Mars in the first house is probably something that will be pivotal in your identification of who you are. In the same sense, it doesn't have to be a surgery, but any sort of accomplishments as well can be very pivotal with a Mars in the first house. Any accomplishments you go after, and things that you complete, and things that you start or create, right? All of those things depend on what sign Mars is in the first house. You're gonna have different things you actually care about that motivate you and inspire you. But Mars in the first house, the accomplishments you make are going to be huge to your identity, huge to the development of your life direction. So knowing your life direction and knowing what you've accomplished and why you've accomplished it and why you cared to accomplish it is going to solidify that identity and allow you to really feel good about what you did and the time you put into those things. And it's going to make you feel a sense of purpose, because Mars in the first house definitely has to understand they have a purpose in doing something. They have to do something in this life. They have to do something and create something that may not have been created before. But it is important to know that there is you're creating in every moment that you're doing things as a Mars in the first house. And the energy you create, the things that you use your energy for with Mars in the first house, are so important, because they are you showing the world and showing the universe who you are by taking those actions. It's like, okay, if I go to the gym today, then I am identifying as someone who is someone that works out. I am identifying as that sort of part of me. And the further you keep doing that, in that direction, you keep making that choice, the further that identity gets solidified. So it's important to understand that the choices you make solidify who you are through that process, through going and taking those actions and taking those choices and seeing who you become in that process. It's really beautiful, honestly. This is such a beautiful, beautiful placement. And I think Mars in the first house has a lot of beauty to it, despite it being a little bit potentially abrasive with that, but I love it. I love all you Mars in the first house people. If you have a Mars in the first house placement, feel free to put it down below. I want to hear your story on how you feel that Mars may have manifested for you in your life, or what different experiences you may have had. If you guys have any questions about this, feel free to comment down below as well. And if you're interested in any readings with me, feel free to also look down below because I have my socials down there. You can book with me there if you're interested. And yeah, it's going to be a very long series I'm going to be doing here with all these different planetary energies. Yeah, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Feel free to stay tuned while I go through all the signs of the zodiac with all the planets. So I'm super excited about this, and I love starting with Aries energy, and this is such a great energy to be in. So I can only imagine how it is to actually have this energy in the first house. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope all you Mars and Aries, Mars in the first house people enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.